Listening now to Columbia Fire Chief
we had a
Aubrey
plane
Jenkins.
crash into a house right here on Kennedy Street.
Yeah, they're going.
We got the call right around 10:34 and we arrived on the scene about 5 minutes later. Of course, when we arrived on the scene, we actually had a house that was on fire, and we had a plane on fire in the back of the house as well. Not in the house, but in the back side of the house. When the call first came in, we were told there were 3 houses on fire, but it turned out only 1 house was on fire. So that's kind of what we're dealing with right now. We had to actually extinguish the plane itself and also the house. There was 1 person home at the house when the plane crashed into the top of the house. There was 1 person home. However, that person did get out and had some injuries that was unrelated to the plane crash itself. We do have CPD on Columbia Police on the scene. We got the coroner on the scene as well. So if you have any questions for any one of them, they'll certainly be glad to answer those questions. But if you have any follow-up questions for me right now, I'll be glad to answer those questions.
What are those unrelated injuries that you spoke of? Is there anything, the person trying to get out of the house? What happened with that?
Well, I think she was trying to get the cats out the house, and she might have got a scratch from the cat. So it was unrelated to the plane crash. Obviously, the plane crash caused her to get out of the house, but as far as the injury, it wasn't a direct relation to the plane.
And I know I saw Dominion had a backhoe or some heavy machinery coming through. What's that being used for? Is that to move the debris of the plane? What are you guys doing with that?
Right now, we're not moving any debris right now, but they were there to secure power lines that were knocked down. So that was their role back there, to secure power lines.
Was the plane on approach to Hamilton Field, or was it leaving Hamilton Field? Do we have any more details about this plane?
Well, that's information that I don't have as far as whether it was. I do believe it was in flight to the airport, but I'm not sure what flight pattern it was on.
How many people were on board the plane? Do you know that?
Well, at this point in time, we do know that there was at least 1 person on board.
The individual deceased, you believe?
That would be for the coroner to talk about.
Can I ask about the fuel real fast? Plane fuel is like really volatile. Do y'all have any plan to get rid of that, or do y'all know how far it's spread or anything like that?
Well, as far as the fuel on the plane, all that burned up because the plane was on fire when it hit the ground. Okay. So as far as we know, all the fuel is burned up in the plane.
What size plane was it? Give us some scope here.
It was a very small plane. That's the only thing I can tell you.
Because there was a flight coming from Greenville to arrive at Hamilton Field at 10:45. Is that the flight? We can confirm that?
Well, we do know that there was a flight that was scheduled. We don't know with certainty that this is that flight. That's something that we're certainly pursuing.
And is the NTSB going to be arriving soon? Do we have any details about the federal investigation?
NTSB will be arriving, and they'll assume the scene.
Talk about your role now. Obviously, lots of officers, lots of street like that. What are you encouraging people to do at this time and make sure the safety of all is involved?
Well, we're secure now. Obviously, when we first arrived, we wanted to make sure we didn't have any other damage other than the involved house. I think, considering the circumstances, very, very lucky that we didn't have further injury. So we appreciate everybody's cooperation. When we got here, it was pretty chaotic, a lot of traffic, vehicle traffic, pedestrian traffic. Fire department always does a great job getting to the scene. And really we were in a support role for them. We wanted to make sure we established a perimeter so they had the opportunity to do their job, which they do very well, and we'll continue to secure this crime scene, support the coroner's office as they work with NTSB to do any kind of recovery, any body recovery.
Could we talk about that body recovery then now? Has there been a body recovered? Do we see any remains, anything of that nature?
This is still an active investigation, and we will report and update you guys when we have more information.
So you cannot confirm a fatality?
We have an active investigation going at this time, and we'll update you as we get more information.
Chief Jenkins, going back to the plane, when you all arrived, you said you had to extinguish the plane itself. Is that right?
That's correct.
Do you know if that plane would have been on fire when it hit the house, or any idea as to when the fire on the plane started?
We're not sure if it was on fire when it hit the house. We do know that the plane caused the house fire So I don't know at what point it actually was on fire. We do have some areas back there where, like I said, it did hit the house. It caused the house to catch on fire. Also, when it hit the ground, it burst. Obviously, it was on fire when it hit the ground.
I think one basic question we haven't asked, and don't think y'all would know yet, but do we know why or how the plane crashed?
That's something that we can't answer as far as how the plane.
So that's going to be up to aviation investigators.
That's correct.
Chief, can you recall anything like this happening in this neighborhood?
I do know years ago we had a plane crash in a house, a rooftop. However, the plane did not catch on fire.
In this neighborhood, you mean?
Yeah, close to this neighborhood. Actually, yeah, not far from here. And the person was able to get out of the plane.
Do you remember roughly when that was?
Oh, that's been years ago.
Years ago?
Chief, I don't know if you guys have heard anything, or you can talk to us about it, but have you heard anything about a distress call for the plane as it is possibly going down? Or do you guys know anything about that, or could speak to that at all?
No, we don't have that kind of information, so we're not familiar with any kind of distress call.
Chief, do we have a representative in the aviation field that can talk about the weather situation? I feel like this is dangerous weather to fly in.
No, we don't have a representative on scene right now. Everything is kind of coming into play. We got people en route to investigate it, also to kind of talk about the weather and everything else that's related to this crash.
What's the fire department's job going forward? Y'all extinguish the flames. Typically with a house fire, y'all investigate after that. You might call in SLED. What's y'all's job going forward?
But basically, we're just here just to make sure nothing reignites. We want to make sure that, just to make sure the fire is basically out.
Chief, can you characterize the damage that the plane and the fire caused to the house?
The plane is pretty mangled up. The fire, it damaged the roof, got inside a little bit. We were able to extinguish it. So we do have some significant damages to both the house and the plane.
Did the plane actually collide with the house, or did it crash near, like in the backyard, and then catch the house on fire?
It's kind of hard to tell. We do know that it did make contact with some trees, skirt across the roof, caused a hole in the roof, and then skirted into the ground.
Was the plane on fire before it hit the house?
That's something that I don't know. Sometimes on impact it can cause a fire, so I'm not sure if it was on fire before it made the impact or not.
And it was just that one house, no other structures were affected?
No other structures were affected. We thought we had 3. We got a report of 3 houses on fire, but when we got here, it was only 1.
And I know you've kind of already spoken to how you guys were just trying to make sure the fires don't return. Have you had to spray down any kind of chemicals? I know you said basically all the fuel burned up. Is there anything like that that you guys are having to take care of out here?
Well, we do have our hazmat team on scene, which is normal, but any type of spillage that may have occurred. But at this point, we don't have any kind of spillage that we've seen.
As we wrap up, I'd like to just ask one more thing. If anybody had that might be here in the neighborhood had any Ring doorbell or surveillance cameras, we'd obviously be interested in that if it possibly caught any of the flight.
Thank y'all.
Thanks.
Everybody good?
Thank you.
Thank you.
There you have it, press conference wrapping up with Richland County Coroner Nada Rutherford, along with Columbia Fire Chief Aubrey Jenkins and City of Columbia Police Chief Skip Holbrook. That plane crashing into that home in the Rosewood community just before 11 o'clock this morning. Still lots of questions surrounding what caused that plane crash, but here's what we do know. The area where the plane crashed is less than a mile away from the Hamilton Owens Airport. The NTSB is still going to have to conduct their investigation. So there were a lot of questions that reporters asked during this press conference that they were not able to answer. But what we do know is that the homeowner was able to escape her home without any injury from the plane crash. Chief Jenkins says that he believes that she sustained some scratches as she was trying to get her pets out of the home, but no injuries from the direct plane crash. As for the condition of the pilot, the coroner is on the scene. We know that the pilot is deceased. We did not get any additional information from her on that as the investigation continues. The fire is out. Crews will start to pull away from there. And then we just heard Columbia Police Chief Skip Holbrook with a plea to those in the community, anyone with a Ring doorbell camera, if you have any evidence that you can share with police that would be helpful, they are asking you to come forward with that. Seeing something on your doorbell camera could be the piece that they need in order to come to a conclusion on what caused this plane to crash. The question to Chief Aubrey Jenkins as to whether or not the plane was on fire when it hit the home was left unanswered. He said he did not know. He knows that it skirted the roof. He wasn't sure if the plane caught on fire upon impact or if it was already on fire when it hit the home. But we know that there was a lot of fog in that area this morning. Visibility was incredibly reduced on the roads as well as in the air.